Commander Zekthara had seen countless species join the Galactic Defense Coalition over his 3 centuries of service. The Korvaxi with their crystalline exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire. The Nethrum whose 4 arms made them natural weapons specialists. The massive Brothan whose thick hides could absorb direct hits from heavy artillery. Each species brought something valuable to the eternal war against the Devourers, but humans? Zekthara studied the datapad containing their species profile with growing confusion. Average height, fragile skin, slow reflexes compared to most sentient races, and no natural weapons or armor. Their home planet Earth had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They had requested to join the Coalition's military forces. But looking at their physical specifications, Zekthara wondered if they would be better suited for supply roles or technical support. "Sir, the human delegation has arrived," announced Lieutenant Vexari, his Korvaxi aide. Her crystalline features reflected the bridge lights as she spoke. "Send them in," Zekthara replied, straightening his uniform. As a member of the proud Zelani warrior caste, he stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick blue-gray skin that had turned away countless enemy strikes. Meeting these small, soft creatures would be interesting. The airlock hissed open, and 3 humans walked onto the bridge. They were indeed smaller than Zekthara had expected, but something about their movements caught his attention. They didn't walk like prey animals. Their eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of the bridge, every exit, every potential threat or advantage. The way they carried themselves reminded him of apex predators he had known. The leader stepped forward. A female with short brown hair and intelligent brown eyes. "Commander Zekthara, I'm General Sarah Chun, Earth Defense Force. Thank you for meeting with us." "General Chun?" Zekthara acknowledged with a slight bow. "I must be honest. Your species' physical specifications are concerning. The Devourer War is brutal beyond measure. We lose thousands of seasoned warriors each cycle." "We understand the risks," Chun replied calmly. "We've studied your combat reports. We believe we can contribute." Zekthara pulled up holographic displays showing recent battle footage. Massive Devourer bioships unleashing swarms of chittering monsters that could tear through standard armor like soft cloth. Plasma cannon exchanges that could melt entire mountainsides. Warriors locked in desperate close combat with creatures that stood 12 feet tall and had claws like vibroblades. "This is what you would face," he said. Watching their reactions carefully, the 3 humans studied the footage intently. Instead of showing fear or backing down, they leaned in closer, asking technical questions about Devourer tactics, weapon capabilities, and defensive strategies. The younger male, introduced as Colonel Marcus Webb, pointed to specific moments in the combat recordings. "Their attack patterns are predictable," Webb observed. "They rely heavily on overwhelming force and intimidation. But look here, when that Korvaxi unit used those crystal formations for cover and created crossfire, the Devourers had no counter-strategy. They just kept charging into the kill zone." "Exactly," Chun agreed. "They're used to enemies either fleeing in terror or meeting them head-on in brute force contests. They're not adapted to face tactical flexibility." Lieutenant Vexari's crystals dimmed with surprise. "You see tactical opportunities in these recordings?" The 3rd human, Captain Elena Vasquez, pulled up additional displays. "Every engagement follows similar patterns. Devourers excel at initial shock and overwhelming local defenses, but they struggle against coordinated small unit tactics and adaptive strategies. On Earth, we've spent millennia fighting each other. We've learned that victory often goes not to the strongest, but to the smartest." Zekthara found himself impressed despite his reservations. These humans analyzed the footage like veteran tacticians, not terrified recruits. Still, analysis was different from actual combat. "Very well," he decided. "You may participate in the next defensive action. But I'm assigning you to secondary positions, far from the main combat zone." "Respectfully, Commander," Chun said, "we'd prefer a frontline assignment. We learn best under pressure." "Absolutely not. I will not have untested aliens dying under my command due to their own overconfidence." Chun exchanged glances with her companions, then nodded. "Understood, sir." We'll prove ourselves wherever you place us. 3 days later, the Devourer fleet arrived at the contested world of Zarian Prime. Zekthara watched from the command ship as hundreds of biovessels emerged from hyperspace, their twisted organic hulls pulsing with malevolent energy. Each ship was the size of a city, carrying thousands of Devourer shock troops. The Coalition fleet moved to intercept, with Zekthara commanding from the heavy cruiser Steadfast. He had positioned the human contingent 3 small ships carrying perhaps 200 personnel in the rear guard, protecting the supply convoy. It was the safest position he could give them while still allowing them to contribute. The first wave of battle went poorly. Devourer bioships launched boarding pods that punched through Coalition shields like they were made of paper. Soon, reports flooded in of enemy forces rampaging through cruiser corridors, overwhelming security teams with sheer ferocity. All ships. "This is Admiral Corinth," came the fleet commander's voice over communications. "Devourer forces have breached hulls on 7 vessels. Boarding parties are causing massive casualties. Any available combat personnel, respond immediately." Zekthara was about to order his reserve, Bruthan Marines to assist when an unexpected voice cut through the comm channel. "Command. This is General Chun aboard EDF vessel Yorktown. We're moving to assist the boarding actions." "Negative, General Chun," Zekthara replied quickly. "Remain in position. These are not targets for untested personnel. With respect, Commander, we're not untested. And these ships need help now, or they'll be lost." Before Zekthara could respond, his sensors showed the 3 human ships breaking formation and accelerating toward the embattled Coalition vessels. He cursed it in his native language, then opened a channel to Admiral Corinth. "Admiral, the human ships are moving to assist without orders." "Let them," Corinth replied grimly. "At this point, we need every sword in the fight. If they want to learn the hard way, so be it." Zekthara watched helplessly as the small human ships approached the massive Coalition cruiser Thunder of Korvax, which was reporting heavy casualties from Devourer boarding parties. The humans used precise maneuvering to dock with emergency airlocks, avoiding the main hangar bays where Devourer forces were concentrated. "Thunder of Korvax. This is Colonel Webb. We're coming aboard with 200 Marines. Can you provide entry points away from enemy concentrations?" The Korvaxi captain's voice was strained with pain and exhaustion. "Human vessel, Devourer's control deck 7 through 12. Our security teams are pinned down on deck 6. We've lost contact with engineering." "Copy that. We'll take engineering first, then work our way up." What happened next defied every expectation Zekthara held about human capabilities. Through the ship's internal sensors, he watched as human Marines moved through the corridors like ghosts. They didn't charge headlong into combat like most Coalition forces. Instead, they moved in small, coordinated teams, using tactics Zekthara had never seen before when they encountered Devourer forces. The humans didn't meet them in direct combat. They used the ship's layout against the invaders, setting up ambush, creating choke points, and coordinating overlapping fields of fire. They moved with a fluid precision that spoke of extensive training and natural tactical instincts. More importantly, they communicated constantly. Every human soldier seemed aware of where every other human was located, what they were doing, and what they planned to do next. Their coordination was so seamless it was almost telepathic. Within 30 minutes, the human Marines had not only retaken engineering but had begun a systematic advance through the ship. They moved like water, flowing around strong points, isolating enemy groups, and striking where the Devourers least expected. "How are they doing this?" Lieutenant Vexari whispered, watching the tactical display. 200 humans are pushing back nearly 1,000 Devourer shock troops." Zekthara studied the patterns, beginning to understand. They're not fighting like individuals, he realized. Every human is acting as part of a larger organism, and they're using the Devourer's aggression against them. Indeed, he watched as human teams would deliberately expose themselves, drawing Devourer forces into carefully prepared kill zones. The aliens would charge, expecting easy prey, only to find themselves trapped in crossfires with no escape routes. But it wasn't just tactics. The humans fought with a cold, calculating ferocity that was deeply unsettling. They showed no mercy to enemies who had shown no mercy to coalition forces. When Devourers tried to use captured Korvaxi crew as shields, the humans didn't hesitate. They found angles that allowed them to eliminate the threats without harming hostages, often with shots that required incredible precision under pressure. Steadfast. "This is General Chun," came the voice from the cruiser. "We've secured the Thunder of Korvax, requesting permission to assist other boarded vessels." Zekthara stared at his tactical display. In less than an hour, 200 humans had accomplished what should have required a full brigade of coalition. The second Devourer boarding action proved even more revealing. Zekthara watched through multiple ship feeds as human marines split into dozens of small teams, each moving through different vessels simultaneously. Their coordination remained flawless despite being spread across an entire fleet engagement. "Commander," Lieutenant Vexari said, her crystals flickering with confusion, "the humans are requesting detailed schematics for all affected ships. They're also asking for real-time updates on crew locations and enemy movements." "Give them everything they need," Zekthara replied, studying the tactical display. The humans weren't just fighting, they were learning. Each engagement taught them something new about coalition ship designs. Devourer tactics and battlefield dynamics on the cruiser blade of Nethrim. He watched as a human team led by Captain Vasquez encountered something that made his blood run cold. A Devourer Ravager, a 12-foot-tall bioweapon with claws that could slice through bulkheads and regenerative abilities that made them nearly impossible to kill with conventional weapons. Most coalition forces required heavy weapons teams or at least a full squad to take down a single Ravager. The humans faced it with a 4-person fire team. "Contact. Ravager class, Corridor Junction 7, came Vasquez's calm voice over the comm. "Moving to engage." Zekthara leaned forward, expecting to witness the humans' first major casualty. The Ravager was wounded but still extremely dangerous, and coalition doctrine required immediate retreat from such encounters unless overwhelming force was available. The humans didn't retreat. Instead, they did something unprecedented. "Martinez, high X to the left ventilation shaft." "Johnson, flashbang in 3 seconds." "Williams, covering fire from the right." "I'm taking point with armor piercing." What followed was a display of coordination that redefined Zekthara's understanding of small unit tactics. The humans didn't try to overpower the Ravager. They controlled it. The explosion in the ventilation shaft created debris that partially blinded the creature. The flashbang disoriented it further. The covering fire forced it to move in a specific direction, straight into Vasquez's line of fire. The armor-piercing rounds didn't kill the Ravager immediately, but they damaged specific joints and movement systems. The creature found itself unable to charge, unable to dodge, and increasingly frustrated. When it finally fell, the humans had expended minimal ammunition and suffered 0 casualties. "How?" Vexari whispered. "How did they know exactly which systems to target?" Zekthara replayed the engagement, studying every detail. "They've been studying our combat footage," he realized. "They learned the Ravager anatomy not from textbooks but by watching how our people fight them. They identified the weak points through pattern analysis." But that wasn't all. As the battle continued, Zekthara noticed something else. The humans weren't just effective fighters, they were teachers. When coalition crew members joined their clearing operations, the humans shared their tactics in real time. "Korvaxi Team Alpha. This is Webb. Angle your crystal formations at 45 degrees to create ricochet zones. The Devourer's chitin armor is weakest from below. Bruthen Heavy Squad, adjust your advance timing. Let the smaller contacts commit to attack vectors before you reveal your position. Use their momentum against them. Nethrim Precision Team, your forearm advantage is perfect for overlapping suppression fire. Designate zones and maintain interlocking coverage." They weren't just fighting alongside coalition forces, they were making coalition forces better. More importantly, They were doing it while conducting their own operations with deadly efficiency. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. What should have been a devastating loss for the Coalition became a tactical victory. Devourer boarding parties found themselves outmatched for the first time in recent memory, not by superior strength or technology, but by superior thinking. "Admiral Corinth to all ships," came the fleet commander's voice. "Devourer forces are beginning to withdraw from boarding actions. All vessels report successful repulsion of enemy forces. Total enemy casualties estimated at over 3,000. "Coalition casualties?" Zekthara asked. "Remarkably light. Most of the ships that received human assistance report casualty rates 80% lower than standard Devourer. Encounters: 3,000 Devourers eliminated by a Coalition force that included only a few hundred humans. The mathematics didn't make sense unless human tactical methods were somehow multiplicatively effective when applied through larger Coalition units. "General Chung, this is Admiral Corinth. I want a full debrief on your combat methods. What you've accomplished today changes everything." Chun's voice remained professionally calm, but Zekthara detected a note of satisfaction. "Gladly, Admiral. Though I should mention this was a relatively simple engagement. We're capable of much more given time to prepare." "More?" Zekthara couldn't imagine what more might look like. He found out 6 hours later the main Devourer fleet had pulled back from the boarding actions, but they weren't retreating. Instead, they were regrouping for a different kind of assault, a direct planetary invasion of Zarian Prime. Massive bioships began deploying atmospheric processors designed to make the planet's air toxic to Coalition species while creating ideal conditions for Devourer ground forces. "Standard doctrine," Admiral Corinth announced during the emergency briefing, "requires us to withdraw beyond the planet's defense perimeter and call for reinforcement. We cannot contest a planetary assault with current force levels." The holographic display showed the sobering reality. Devourer ground forces numbered in the millions, supported by bio-titans that served as living artillery pieces. Coalition ground forces on Zarian Prime numbered barely 50,000, mostly civilian evacuation teams with minimal combat capability. "Admiral," General Chun spoke up from her position at the briefing table, "we'd like to propose an alternative." "Go ahead." "General, give us the planetary insertion mission. Full deployment, all human personnel." The briefing room fell silent. Even Admiral Corinth's massive frame seemed to deflate slightly. "General, you're talking about deploying 200 Marines against millions of Devourer ground forces. That's not strategy, that's suicide." "With respect, Admiral, you're thinking in terms of traditional force-on-force engagement. We don't intend to fight their entire army. We intend to make their entire army irrelevant." Colonel Webb activated a tactical projection showing Zarian Prime's surface. "Devourer ground doctrine relies on establishing atmospheric processors at key points, then slowly expanding territory while their bio-titans provide mobile artillery support. They're methodical, predictable, and completely dependent on their support infrastructure." Captain Vasquez continued the presentation. "Atmospheric processors require specific environmental conditions to function. They're also heavily shielded against orbital bombardment, making them nearly impossible for your fleet to target. But they're not designed to resist close-range infiltration by small, fast-moving teams." Chun gestured to the planetary map. "We insert in 12 teams of 16 Marines each. Primary mission: neutralize atmospheric processors before they can establish toxic conditions. Secondary mission: identify and eliminate bio-titan command nodes. Tertiary mission: create chaos and Devourer rear areas to disrupt their advancement." Zekthara studied the plan with growing amazement and horror. It was either brilliant or completely insane. "General, even if you succeed in destroying the processors, you'll be stranded on a hostile planet with no extraction plan." "Actually," Webb smiled for the first time since Zekthara had met him, "we won't need extraction if this works. The Devourer ground army will need to be extracted from what will soon be an untenable position." Admiral Corinth's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Vasquez pulled up detailed technical specifications. Devourer Biotitans are incredible weapons platforms, but they have a critical vulnerability. Their neural command systems require specific atmospheric conditions to function optimally. The same conditions created by their atmospheric processors. Remove the processors, Chun continued, and the Biotitans become sluggish, confused, and vulnerable. More importantly, the Devourer ground forces lose their primary advantage: close air support and mobile artillery. You're proposing to strand yourselves on a hostile planet on the theory that you can eliminate enough infrastructure to turn the tide of an entire planetary invasion? Corinth asked. Not theory, Webb replied. Certainty. We've run the calculations based on observed Devourer logistics patterns. They over-rely on centralized support systems because they've never faced an enemy capable of rapid, distributed strikes against infrastructure targets. Zekthara felt a chill of recognition. The humans were thinking several steps ahead, as they had during the boarding actions. But this time, they were applying their tactical thinking to an entire planetary campaign. What do you need? Admiral Corinth asked quietly. Fast insertion pods? 48 hours of silence from your fleet? And confirmation that coalition ground forces can move to offensive operations on our signal. And if you're wrong? If the plan fails? Chin met the Admiral's gaze steadily. Then we'll have bought time for civilian evacuation and gathered intelligence that will help the next coalition force be more effective. The Admiral was quiet for several long moments. Finally he nodded. Approved. God help us. The first 18 hours of the human insertion mission passed in agonizing silence. Coalition sensors could detect Devourer ground movements, massive formations of shock troops advancing across Zarian Prime's continents, supported by Biotitans whose artillery strikes could be heard from orbit. But no word came from the human teams. Zekthara found himself checking tactical displays every few minutes, looking for any sign of human activity. The silence wasn't necessarily bad news. Stealth operations required communication blackout, but the scale of what they were attempting made every hour feel like an eternity. Commander, Lieutenant Vexari reported, her crystals dim with worry. Admiral Corinth is requesting status updates every 30 minutes. The Coalition Council is demanding to know why we've committed ground forces to what they're calling an impossible mission. Tell them we're maintaining communication silence as planned, Zekthara replied. Though privately he was beginning to share the Council's concerns. 200 humans against millions of Devourers seemed increasingly suicidal with each passing hour. Then, at hour 19, everything changed. Fleet Command. This is General Chun. Operation Thunderbolt is commencing final phase. Recommend all ships move to close orbital support positions. Admiral Corinth's voice carried across all channels. General Chun, what's your status? We've had no word for 18 hours. Sorry for the silence, Admiral. We've been busy. Atmospheric Processor Alpha through Delta are offline. Biotitan command nodes at Sites Bravo, Charlie, and Echo have been neutralized. Devourer command structure is currently in complete disarray. Zekthara's tactical display suddenly exploded with information. Human identification beacons appeared across Zarian Prime's surface, revealing that the 12 teams had somehow penetrated hundreds of miles into Devourer-controlled territory. More importantly, the symbols marking atmospheric processors began winking out one by one. How is this possible? Admiral Corinth demanded. Our last intelligence showed those processors heavily defended by thousands of Devourer troops. Colonel Webb's voice joined the channel. Turns out Devourers have a lot of the same weaknesses as their biotechnology. They over-centralize command, they rely heavily on routine patterns, and they don't adapt well to rapid changes in battlefield conditions. We've been moving constantly for 18 hours, Captain Vasquez added. Hit and fade tactics, targeting infrastructure and command nodes while avoiding direct confrontation with their main forces. Every atmospheric processor we take down makes their biotitans less effective, which makes the next target easier to reach. Zekthara studied the tactical display with growing amazement. The humans hadn't tried to fight the Devourer army. They had systematically dismantled the Devourer army's ability to function. It was like watching someone defeat a massive predator by carefully removing its teeth and claws rather than fighting it head-on. "Admiral," Chun's voice carried a note of urgency. "We're ready to implement Phase 2, but we need Coalition ground forces to move immediately. The Devourer command structure is collapsing, but they'll recover and adapt if we give them time." "What's Phase 2? Corinth asked. "Complete reversal of battlefield advantage. We've taken out enough infrastructure that their biotitans are operating at maybe 30% effectiveness. Their shock troops are scattered and confused because their command centers keep going offline. But most importantly, we've identified their central command nexus." A new tactical marker appeared on the display, a massive biostructure at the center of the Devourer deployment area. "The master organism," Webb explained. "Everything we've done has been building toward this. Take out the master organism, and every Devourer on the planet loses coordination completely." Zekthara felt his breathing stop. The master organism was a legend, mentioned in intelligence reports but never successfully targeted. It was supposedly protected by elite Devourer guards and biodefenses that made it utterly invulnerable to conventional assault. "General," Admiral Corinth said slowly, "the master organism has never been successfully attacked. Coalition analysis suggests it would require a full army to penetrate its defenses." "Coalition analysis was based on conventional force-on-force assault," Chun replied. "We're not planning a conventional assault. We're planning to walk in the front door while they're looking the other way." What the humans had discovered, Zekthara realized as he listened to their plan, was that Devourer psychology had critical blind spots. The aliens were so focused on direct threats and overwhelming force that they couldn't comprehend the idea of enemies who operated through misdirection and precise targeting. "Every Devourer Guard unit is currently deployed to protect infrastructure we've already destroyed," Vasquez explained. "The master organism's defenses are designed to repel massive assaults, not small infiltration teams. And with their atmospheric processors offline, we can approach through routes that should be toxic to most Coalition species but are perfectly manageable for humans." "Humans," Zekthara noted, "who apparently could operate in environmental conditions that would kill most other sentient species. Another advantage no one had considered when evaluating their military potential." "Coalition ground forces are in position," Admiral Corinth announced. "All units prepare for immediate offensive operations on General Chun's signal." What followed was the most stunning reversal in galactic military history. Zekthara watched through orbital sensors as Coalition ground forces inspired by human tactics and coordinated by human planning executed a planetary offensive that should have been impossible. Human teams provided real-time intelligence, identifying weak points in Devourer formations and coordinating strikes that exploited every advantage their infrastructure attacks had created. Korvaxi crystal formations used the terrain in ways they had never attempted before, creating killing fields that trapped Devourer shock troops in crossfires. Nethrim precision teams struck at ranges and angles that maximized their natural advantages. Bruthan heavy units coordinated their assaults with a timing that multiplied their effectiveness. But the decisive moment came when General Chun's voice cut across all channels with 4 simple words. "Master organism is down." The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the entire planet, Devourer forces suddenly stopped their coordinated movements. Shock troops began wandering aimlessly. Biotitans started attacking their own forces. The carefully orchestrated invasion became a chaotic rout in a matter of minutes. "All Coalition forces," this is Admiral Corinth, "commence planetary mop-up operations. Priority is the capture of Devourer biotechnology and personnel for intelligence gathering." Zekthara stared at his displays in disbelief. A Coalition force that should have been evacuating in defeat was instead achieving the most decisive victory against Devourer forces in over 50 years. And it had all been made possible by 200 humans who had turned conventional military thinking upside down. Fleet Command. This is Colonel Webb. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. Go ahead. Colonel, we've captured the master organism intact. It's not dead, it's in some kind of shutdown state. Our field analysis suggests it might be possible to reprogram its control functions. The implications hit Zekthara like a physical blow. If humans could control a master organism, they could potentially turn entire Devourer fleets against each other. Colonel, Admiral Corinth's voice was carefully controlled. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Yes, sir. With proper study and preparation, we might be able to turn the Devourer's own command structure against them. Not just defend against their invasions, but end their threat to the galaxy permanently. 3 months later, Zekthara stood in the Coalition Council chambers on the capital world of New Harmony, watching as Admiral Corinth presented the formal after-action report from the Zarian Prime campaign. The statistics were staggering: 98% Devourer casualty rate, complete capture of their invasion fleet, and the first intact master organism in Coalition possession, but the numbers didn't capture the real change. What had changed was how every species in the galaxy looked at warfare itself. The human approach, Admiral Corinth explained to the assembled representatives, has revolutionized our understanding of asymmetric combat. They've demonstrated that victory doesn't require superior strength or technology, it requires superior adaptation, coordination, and strategic thinking. In the 3 months since Zarian Prime, human tactical instructors had been assigned to every major Coalition military unit. The results were unprecedented. Coalition forces were winning engagements they should have lost, suffering casualty rates that were a fraction of historical norms, and capturing Devourer technology and personnel at rates that had intelligence departments struggling to keep up with analysis. But perhaps more importantly, the humans had shared everything. Every tactical innovation, every strategic insight, every technical advancement they developed was immediately distributed throughout Coalition forces. They didn't hoard their advantages, they multiplied them by teaching others. The question before this council, Admiral Corinth continued, is how to proceed with humanity's role in Coalition military operations. Zekthara knew the debate had been raging for weeks. Some council members wanted to treat humans as specialized consultants, calling them